Greetings, family. Welcome to the Sister Shanice Show platform. Yes, it's you, Jammer Day. Yes, it's another Wednesday show. This one isn't a live, it is a premiere. But you know what an awesome, fantastic premiere it's going to be as well. Why? Because we have our beloved brother, Irritated Genie, in the house. Brother Io Kamani, fondly called the Irritated Genie, and he's going to tell in a little while where he got that name from. My brother, as always, it's a pleasure to have you in the house. How have you been since the last time you were on this platform?
Been fantastic, doing what we do, keep working for the people.
Oh, awesome, awesome. So, family, as you come through the door, yeah, please do take a copy of the link and share, share, share. If you're not already a subscriber, please do subscribe to this platform and help us to spread the word, because the messages that our speakers bring on this platform is absolutely groundbreaking and phenomenal. We are leading the way in terms of Pan-African thought for the 21st century. This is a new day, a new dispensation. And, you know, the ground is moving at a faster pace. It's like, you know, there's a whirlwind happening. Such an appropriate title for today's show. Today's show is entitled The Whirlwind, the African World Revolution. Rise up, brother Ayakamani, for the name of today's show. But before we go into the topic of conversation, please do introduce yourself to the Sister Shanice Show audience.
All right. Well, my name is Ayo Kimathi, but I'm better known as the Irritated Genie. There was a book called The Irritated Genie written by Baba Jacob Carruthers years ago, and it talked about the spirit of the angry spirit of the Haitian people to resist tyranny, and it was called The Irritated Genie. And brothers gave me that name some years ago, and I've been wearing it proudly ever since, trying to do my best job to be a modern day Irritated Genie. So I'm a lecturer, a writer, author, speaker, community activist, social activist, and a social architect. So I do some things for our people. I do my best.
Do amazing works, enlightening our people and waking our people up. And you have a very profound and deeply insightful perspective on world events. And that's why, you know, we just so love hearing from you on this platform. So again, thank you so, so much for joining us. So, as I said, today's topic comes at a time when there is just so much happening across the continent. Young people are rising up. They are saying enough is enough. They want to see change. They recognize that they are on the richest piece of real estate in the world, yet they are living impoverished lives and they're not prepared to tolerate it anymore. You know, it's surprising that the world's powers that be have managed to get away with it for so long. But, you know, this generation is saying, look, unlike our parents' generation, you know, we're not prepared to tolerate these old sleeping leaders who are so greedy and selfish. They want to take all of the country's resources and use it as if it's their own, share it with their rich friends from around the world, and enjoy the benefits of it, whilst the people struggle, live on less than $1 a day, don't know where their next meal is coming from, can't see any of the benefits in terms of infrastructural development and the development of the country itself. And they're like, no, we're not having it anymore. Is this a new day, my brother? What do you think about the developments that's happening across the continent? We've got the three kings, as you call them, in the Sahel. Absolutely love that. We've got the young people in Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Senegal, and various other parts of the continent now who are saying, you know, we're in the same situation, living very impoverished lives, yet our countries are just so wealthy. Is this a new day? What's your perspective, please?
You know, we talked about the title of this program, and we called it Whirlwind, the African Revolution, the African World Revolution. And what I actually, my position or what I'm seeing is that we're actually living in a real life African world revolution. And what I mean by that Dr. John Henry Clark said something years ago, and I never forgot it. He always said very wise things. He said, the Europeans, I'm sorry, let me turn this off. I apologize.
No problem.
He said that, Dr. Clark said, the Europeans and the other imperialists in Africa want to make sure that not one African nation gains success and freedom and liberation. Because if there's one example, he said, we are very rhythmic people, we will follow. And then you would start seeing it spread, and it wouldn't take long. And I never forgot that he said that, because I was like, wow. So, sometimes we think it was all of these nations and all of these things have to go. And that's not the perspective that Dr. Clark said. He said they don't want one nation to get it right. Because if one nation gets it right, African people will not have to be told what to do. We'll look and see it and say, yeah, that's what we want. And we would just start doing the same thing, and it would just happen organically, and it would happen quickly. So they don't want any nation to do it. And now what's so beautiful is that we're in an African world revolution, and I don't think that we see it. Well, some of us do, some of us may not, but it's not just any one place, the things that are happening. First, we see not just one nation, but 3 different nations who are fighting and freeing themselves. We're talking Mali with Baba Goita. We're talking Niger, Baba Chiani. And then we're talking Burkina Faso with the resurrection of Sankara, Baba Traore, young brother, young lion. And so we see that we have men who have plenty of years to lead our people in the right direction, 3 different nations, but all working together at the same time. That's what's so fascinating. They've come together. I was doing a discussion with the people in Uganda, Pan-African Pyramid debate yesterday. And they were asking me about the African Union. What is the benefit of the African Union? Is it doing what it said it set out to do? And I said, the term African Union, based on what is happening in the Sahel, which we call One Africa, with our 3 kings that I just mentioned, as far as I'm concerned, between what they're doing and what we do, see, they're One Africa. They're showing us what it looks like when Africa gets united, because 3 different nations have come together and they're united. So I call it One Africa. And every country that joins them is part of One Africa, to the point where every nation on the continent says, we got to join One Africa, because we're not African people who are going to be here while this is happening and we're not participating. They're going to force their governments to join, or they're going to remove their governments and become their government and join. So that's the One Africa. But African Union, I say, what the African Union is what they're doing in the Sahel, One Africa, and our support system for what they're doing. We are the Union of Africa. In other words, we can't just put it on those 3 brothers and the people of those 3 nations that are working as one block. So we can't just put it on them. What about all the millions, over 100 million Africans in the diaspora? If you look at Asia, many don't know that they're African, but there are Africans who are in Asia. You have many in Europe, and you have plenty in North and South America that still know that we're African, or have some idea that we're Black at least. What happens when we say, hey, those examples that Dr. John Henry Clark talked about are here? And I am a surgeon. I am a dentist. I'm a construction worker. I'm a plumber. I'm an electrician. I'm a seamstress. I'm great with economics. I'm great with development. I'm great with information. What happens when we say it's not them over there that are in One Africa? That's us here, which is everywhere. They are us. And what I'm starting to see, like whenever we talk, we end up going back there. Why? Because they're doing it. We're not ignoring what they're doing. We see their success as our success, because we see ourselves as the Africans that we are. Hence, The revolution that is happening there is happening with us as well, which means now we have to say, what is it that I bring to the table that I can find a way to humbly, we got to be humble. We can't go in there like we know what to do. None of us did what those men did. None of us have accomplished what they have. So they are in the lead. We're going to the men who are in leadership. We're not going over there telling them anything. But at the same time, we're going over to say, hey, here's what we have. Can any of this that we have help? Because we could not sleep well knowing that something didn't go as well as it could have gone because we didn't contribute what we have. If we've gained anything in the diaspora, which we have, many of us are languishing in the West, not really being able to maximize our contribution. Imagine if there's a place that wants our contribution and we're not going over there with none of the filth and degeneracy that have been poured on us and saturated us here. No, we're going there to help. We're going there to say math, science, engineering, development, building, whatever business skills that we have. How do we go and help? Education. Good example, what we're talking about. I'm loving, I'm constantly monitoring what's happening over in One Africa because I'm like, I just can't stop being so proud of these men and the work that they're doing. Every African man wishes he could have done what these men have done. So I'm not jealous or envious. I'm just proud of these brothers. I saw an article come out that said Niger is getting 2.3 million children polio vaccinations.
Oh.
Right now, right. So just like you said, just like you did. Now, again, I'm not going to be presumptuous and say that they didn't create these themselves and that these are not safe vaccinations. What I am going to say is I want to be sure because the potential is, look how much they got right. Well, if we're an African world community, that doesn't mean they're going to know everything, which means in the objective of trying to keep their people healthy, they may have beat in the military and they may have beat on the ground with the economics, but maybe they just didn't see this coming. Well, we in the diaspora, we see this coming.
We see what's coming indeed, and we can't even talk about it on this platform, otherwise it's going to get pulled. But yeah, in terms of communicating to our family, information that we have access to and that we are all very aware of, we need to open up these dialogues and these means and these channels of communication. And so, yes, we welcome the invitations to come to share our skills and expertise and knowledge and information with our family abroad.
Imagine, I want everybody to hear what I'm saying. They're rushing to get 2.3 million children against polio. We're hoping that that's what it is, but we all too well familiar. We've done programs on that. We remember what happened in 58 that ended up being called AIDS. 25 years after the millions of people in Central Africa died from polio. Well, they're getting those now. We don't know. We haven't seen those injections, but we certainly would want to share that information with them. Going back to what you said, 2.3 million children, that's a whole future. If it's not right. What I'm saying is we have access to invaluable information and perspective living in the belly of the beast where many of these decisions are made. We've seen it and read about it. Just because it happened on the continent doesn't mean the people there have ever had the same access to the same information we have. We don't know that. The only way we can know is to run it by them. Let them see what we've already had. I have documentation of this. Why would I not go share this documentation with them? I mean, I've already done it. Did I just do it for us? No, I did it for Black people all over the world. Maybe they haven't seen it. Maybe that would make them say, hey, let me go in here and check these things and make sure. Maybe they would do what happened in Kenya when they investigated and found that they had birth control inside of the injection.
So, you do know that if you continue down this road, we might as well just stop the interview because it's going to get pulled. But I think you've more than adequately made your point. we do need to address this. And let's call on the family to do the research. Send us a link to where you got that information, that plan is going to be rolled out. And let's all use the mediums that we can use to have the conversation, to raise awareness about this, because there are other platforms that we can use where we can have the conversation uncensored. Okay. All right. So I think the point's been well made. We're in a position, we're in the belly of the beast, and we have access to a huge amount of information. I mean, even here in the UK as well. And a lot of this information, our brothers and sisters on the continent may not be seeing it, may not be aware of it. And so I absolutely agree. We need to share. We have so much information that we need to share with them. So family there in the Sahel, make the call. We can get through these language barriers now. We can use Google Translate even to get through the translation barriers. So thanks for highlighting that is a plan that needs to be addressed. Wow. Yeah, because the powers that be never sleep. They are gunning for us on a multiplicity of levels. And that is definitely, one of their biggest weapons in their toolbox, to address, to deal with us, who they see as a problem in this world. Yeah.
We have, and we showed it before, the British Parliament, who was bragging about the 2 million Ugandans who weren't born because of what Britain contributed. He bragged about it. These are discussions, how do I want to say it?
That need to be shared.
Yeah. And shared, not just, here's a piece of information, share. We have, how do I want to say it? What we have, see, and this is really what I wanted to talk about. When we talk about the African World Revolution, we're in a very special position. So for instance, I'm looking at the Sahel, at One Africa. They are fighting France. In Haiti, the primary enemy that they've had to fight, I mean, of course, they have to fight what's happening from this country as well, but their primary enemy that they expelled was France. So here you have the leaders in the West in terms of independence, the only free, completely independent African nation, totally sovereign, Haiti, in the Western Hemisphere. And now you have this one region, One Africa, called the Sahel, AES, in Africa, who fighting the same French. Should not we, as Africans who can see that, say, well, wait a minute. They both fighting the French. We learned from Dr. Arikana Chiambari Kwao about how the French are so exploitative of African people. Should not we say, you know what? Since the African Union of the past would not allow Haiti to join, since they are the single African nation in the Western Hemisphere, would not our French-speaking brothers and sisters in the Sahel say, you know what? Haiti, you are our brothers. You're part of Africa. You're the freedom fighters that are like us. Before we did it, you did it over there in the belly of the beast. So why wouldn't we still see you as the Africans that you are? You were brought from West Africa. Many of you were brought from right here. We're the same. And then we don't have to worry about so-called African. We have to worry about the real African Union. We can see that though, because we in both sides. You got brother Cherizier, brother Barbecue. No warrior down there in Haiti now, from my observation and research, I have not met him yet. This brother is a Dessalines on the rise at the same time that it's happening in the Sahel, and they both French-speaking countries, which means they can interact, they can have talking back and forth.
Yeah.
How do we broker that deal? Because we're here in the US. We can see that. We can see that. You're in England. Why can't we broker this deal to get Haiti recognized as part of Africa? Why not?
Part of the AES. Yeah. Our own African paradigm. Yeah. It doesn't have to be regional. Yeah, African unity, Africa uniting is about the African on the continent, the Caribbean, and those of us in the diaspora all coming together.
Baba
Wow.
Garvey said, look for me in the whirlwind and the storm.
Whirlwind.
Look for me all around you.
Yeah.
It's all around us.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Think
put it out there on the airwaves now. You put it out there in the ether, and I know it's going to grow legs and it's going to reach the ears of those who it needs to reach. Yes, my beloved brother, Haiti needs to join definitely the new African Union that our three kings have created. Wow, that would be phenomenal.
Imagine in the East back home, we have these brothers who are partnered with the second mightiest military in the world, the Russian Federation. We have to appreciate the listen. I'm as black gets. I just got to keep it real. They weren't involved in the slave trade. Check. They weren't involved in colonialism. Check. And when we've been fighting freedom struggles, we needed some weapons and guns. Who was the ones that said, hey, you got the money, pay for it, we got you. Sometimes they would give it to us until we could pay for it. It was the Russians. So how can we have problems with Russians? So with that said, with the deal that these brothers have brokered in the East, and we got brothers in the West, in Haiti, that was the ones who instigated the end of slavery. We need to be clear. White folks try to take credit for ending slavery, the British. No, sorry, no, didn't happen like that. The Haitians ended slavery internationally because they defeated the English, they defeated the Spanish, they defeated the French, the mightiest militaries of the world at that time. And they said, you know what? We got to be careful with this slavery thing because these black folks are not going to act right. And when they get free, we see what can happen. So we're going to stop this slavery thing because we don't want that to happen in America. We don't want it to happen in Britain. So it was our Haitian brothers and sisters. Well, they're rising again right now. At the same time, we're rising in the West. It sounds like Baba Garvey's Whirlwind in the Storm.
Rising up the spirit of Marcus Messiah Garvey, he said, as you said, look for me in the whirlwind. I will be there all about. And he certainly is as well. There's a whirlwind happening across the continent. And as you pointed out, it's reached as far as Haiti as well. And there is that potential, for that union there that embraces Haiti. We certainly hope that gets picked up on and taken forward. So this is a new day. Go ahead. I can see you just about to jump in there.
Yeah. So I want to jump. And again, we're talking, you asked the question, what do you see the world looking like in this next dispensation of time, this African world revolution? So I'm going to just talk about some things I see. So, sometimes we look at the negative side, but we got to also look at the potential good side. So we see the modern day, really, honestly, based on what he's doing, I would say the worst traitor in African world history. I've never seen anything worse than what Ruto is doing. Just to refresh people's mind, and just real quick spot up to remember, he's telling the farmers, you cannot take your natural seeds and farming that you had since your ancestors to pass them down and share with each other. You can only get GMO seeds. And if you use natural seeds and trade with each other, we'll lock you up and arrest you. Arrest you from sharing natural seeds to grow on your own farms. He's telling people you're no longer landowners. You're now sharecroppers. You have the land, you're leasing the land for a certain amount of time, which means if you can't pay the taxes, they can take it from you, and you can't take your land and give it to your children and pass it on. No, it has to be bought or whatever the case may be, which means literally he's stealing our land to give to the small hats. And literally, I've never seen anything like it. He's sending troops from, remember, if you want to talk about the country, it was Ghana who got their independence first. But that was off of the spirit of the Mau Mau, the Kikuyu, Dedan Kimathi, where I get my last namesake from, Kimathi. This is the land of the Mau Mau, the freedom of the Kenyan Land and Freedom Army. These are the warriors of Africa. How do you send troops from there to go to fight the Haitian brothers and sisters who fought to get their freedom here and are still struggling in the West? His level of treason is something we've never seen before. there's a huge but. But it also gives us opportunity to do a few things. One, by committing this level of treason at this time in history, he gives us a perfect opportunity to make an example out of him. Or for the next 100 years, what's going to happen to people that turn and betray us as African people. And what is so perfect is the young people have already set it up. They started it. They've already lost over 50 lives. It might be well over 50. We know the children who are just out there saying, hey, these bills that you're saying that we can't trade our own seeds. No, these taxes that you're adding that we can't afford to eat bread. No, this is not acceptable, which they're supposed to do. Now you murder them? No, we have to have an example out of this guy. And so it honestly, it led to the young people coming out and flooding the streets, which is fantastic. What it also does, and we haven't thought about this, but I want people to hear this. Now, I know this is going to sound amazing. It's going to sound, oh, that's too fantastic. That can't happen, brother. You dreaming. But that's what I'm doing. Baba Garvey, he made me dream. I'm saying, look, since he sent troops from Kenya, Mau Mau, to go fight our brothers and sisters in Kenya, in Haiti, but he's not looking too good right now. His situation is not stable. So what that means is if the young people keep the pressure on, he got to get out anyway, which means any deal that he made with those Kenyans to send them over there, he can't defend them because he's not going to be in office anyway. So maybe those Kenyan troops that are there need to hook up with Cherizier and barbecue and say, you know what? Why shouldn't we come over here to the West and help our brothers and sisters? Since you want to come over here, then why don't you help us get some freedom?
That's good. That would be the African spirit. Yeah. That would be, yeah.
You got guns anyway. You got guns. You trained. And you got some black people that need some freedom.
Yeah.
Give them some freedom. Help join. Join with our brothers. And stop going over there to fight and do that because you're not. See, this is a good thing. If you do the right thing, you'll be heroes when you land back in Kenya. If you do anything to hurt our Haitian brothers and sisters, there's no way in the world that you can go and not be vilified. All of us hate you. But get some love from your African people. The African World Revolution. Why not? Why not?
Why not, indeed? Okay, I've got a clip here that I'd like to play us. Let me share screen. Is that okay with you? We'll just share screen for a little while and play this clip. You're talking about the young people of Kenya and them speaking up and out for themselves. Here we go.
I think a lot of people do not understand why we are doing these protests. A lot of people try to make it look as if we are calling for anarchy. But what it is, and as we've aptly put it, correcting that notion in the media that this is anti-government protests. What we're doing is saying, this system that's currently in here is not working for us. The system in Majambazi, and you find that corruption is at an all-time high. Public resources are being looted. Kids are going hungry in schools. As a young person, when you apply for an IB, first you have to pay 1,000 bob and it takes forever to come out, which is a lot of these things that are happening. So currently the system as is not working. But two, for me, yesterday was a very personal affair because there is a point where it could have been dialogued. When it was the first time when people were talking about the finance bill and they were saying reject, he could have rejected it and Parliament would have done the right thing without us losing lives. We just lost one life. Remember when we started, we only had lost Reds and we only had the other people injured. But now, as at yesterday, the count was at 50. 50 young people have died. And for me, it's a madness. So we are back on the streets for police reforms, not just sending people home without accountability. That's part of what we were doing on the streets. Two, these promises that a lot of people are making it look as if President Ruto has given us sudden advances, but no, there are no advances that President Ruto has given us. And I say this because when the cabinet was appointed, it was gazetted. Now he says he has dismissed his cabinet, but it has not been gazetted. You see, now we can't trust him. Was it 8th of July when Murkomen said they will try and see that the levy is not increased. The levy has gone on fuel, as much as yes, it has not increased on the pump, but the fuel levy has gone from 18 shillings to 25 shillings. So it means that this government is taking us on rounds, and what we're saying, at this point, there's no goodwill coming from the government. And we want a confirmation that if we continue being ourselves, because we've always been peaceful, we've always been pro good governance, that they will not abduct us. You've seen even as early as recently as this morning, the DCI abducted a person in a police station. And then they tweeted out and said, sorry, this was a case of mistaken identity. So it's just one of those things where it's things that we cannot fix in a day. So people just looked at this and thought it was just about the finance bill. But we also have a list of things that pile up to good governance.
Okay, let's hold it there. It's not just about the finance bill. It's a list of things that add up to the need to have improvement in governance. And also, they're very concerned, and quite rightly so, about the need for police reforms. Around 50 or so young Kenyans have lost their lives so far in these protests. And if you look, Brother Irritated Genie, at the policing on the streets of Kenya, look at how they're kitted out. Look at how they're armed. Look at the tanks, the trucks, the chemicalized water cannons, the live rounds of ammunitions that they've been given to fire on their people. Look at the militarization of the police on the streets of Kenya. Look at how the police came out on the streets in Nigeria to prevent the young people of Nigeria from protesting. Look at the extent to which they have been militarized, kitted out. Look at the militarization of the police in Uganda. Similarly, kitted out, shields, batons, chemicalized weapons going around in armored trucks and armored tanks on the streets. I mean, there seems to be a significant increase in the militarization of the police on the streets of Africa. What are your observations about this, please?
What they're doing, and it's hard for us to imagine it because we're living through it. They're taking the Israeli-Palestinian construct and weaponizing corrupt Black leadership into a modern version of the 1960s rebellion against Black power. Meaning, when Black people in America were rising up, they would send dogs in the street, they would send water hoses, they would send, so that was in the 1960s here, which we see now in a more militarized fashion in Israel with the extermination of the Palestinians. Much of the police force in the US is now being trained by Israelis. Most people don't know this. In Washington, D.C., they travel to Israel to learn how to do policing, which makes no sense because they're not fighting Palestinians here. They're fighting, they're dealing with basic crime in America. They shouldn't be being trained by Israeli forces. That doesn't make any sense. But nevertheless, they're globalizing the Palestinian quarrel or situation, really genocide at this point. They're globalizing it. They're sending in tanks. If we remember that bill, the money that was sent from the Jews in America, if we remember the things that they were sending them, money and resources for, they were sending them tanks. They were sending them money to help build prisons. Why do you need to build more prisons in Africa unless you expect more crime to occur? Which means they're going to start importing the same things they have in the US, drugs, pornography, which they've already imported. I've been over there. The same ills that and perversions and decadence and poverty, created, manufactured poverty that they created in America for Black people to destroy families is what they're doing in Africa. Matter of fact, and all of these things play together. That's why I'm saying them together. It's not one thing. It's called a blitz. They're hitting us with so many things at once we don't know. A huge one that they're hitting us with. What is it called? Goldman Sachs is now putting $10 million. Is it 10 billion or 10 million? I don't remember if it's 10 million or 10 billion. It might be 10 billion. It's a huge number into Black entrepreneurship and wealth of Black women in Africa. What are they doing? In America in the 1950s, what they did was they created this welfare system that worked like this. If you were black, if you were a black woman, and what happened, they first destabilized the men's capacity to make money by destroying the regular job market. So black men couldn't get jobs like at the shipyard and things of that nature. Jobs that black men could always get, they start pulling all those jobs. So black men couldn't get employment. And then right off of the back of that, they came in and said, all right, listen, black women, you can get enough money to feed you and your family for the whole month, each month. The only condition is you can't have a man in the house. So then the women had to decide, do I want my family with the man who's struggling to get a job, who now is drinking alcohol out of depression and things of that nature, and we're having issues? Do I hold on to my family and starve to death? Or do I tell the man, just don't be here when they come? And then slowly but surely, he feels now he's not wanted because he can't provide for me, but now the state gives to me, and now I can eat. So they divided black men and women through that process. What they're doing now is the very same thing. I've heard women in Uganda speak about it. They're giving all this money and resource and training to the women, but they're not giving anything to the boys. Who are our boys going to roll? She said they're getting involved in crime. And this is a woman in Uganda. They're getting involved in crime and homosexuality because they don't have anything. And so I was like, wow. So we see Goldman Sachs now investing millions of dollars going to the African continent, going to our women. As men, we should be saying, wait a minute. First of all, if a man knows anything, don't no other man be paying your woman nothing. That's not healthy. You don't have her father, maybe. Okay, daddy gonna give to her brother, a cousin, but just some random man coming up buying your woman. You don't let no man come up buying your woman off like that. We have to start looking at the fact that the corruption in Africa is leading to some things. One, when you have corruption, it creates poverty because you got $1 billion that comes in and 990 million are kept by 2 or 3 people. And one little teeny portion is taken and spread out as crumbs among the people, and they starve to death. Well, the people that end up having more than what they need are so greedy that they starve the other people, that those people become desperate. So they either begin to rebel. So you see the young people starting to rebel, or they start becoming open to outside forces that come in and offer financial opportunities. And with those financial opportunities comes some kind of trade. Eventually, the trade is going to be, let's overthrow the people in power. So these corrupt leaders don't realize they're creating the problem for themselves, because ultimately, eventually, they're going to get overrun and destroyed. Then thus creating another set of circumstances, because it doesn't guarantee that the next person coming into power is going to be good. The situation we're in now, there's a benefit, is as bad as things are looking in Kenya, I would look at, if we do this right, we don't want to give lives for anything, but let me just say it to be honest. What has happened in Mali, in One Africa, Niger, and Burkina Faso is one way to do it. From the leadership and from the warriors in the military, they have taken over from the top for the people, and the people have gotten behind them, and they're pushing forward. What's happening that's in the West. In the East, it's happening differently. But it's okay, as long as they finish just like they finished there. Because what's happening now is the young people have given their lives to take back their country. It's a little different than what's happening in One Africa. This is blood being given by children to say, we're not even just fighting neo-colonialism and putting the French out. We're not pointing the finger at what they're doing, even though we know that there are nefarious forces that are inspiring this corruption. But no, we're going to deal with our own corrupt leaders, like as children and youth and the people. We're going to physically give, they've already given over 50 lives. Ain't no coming back from this. What this does, though, it's sad, but when they win, it's not sad. I'm going to tell you why. And it's horrible now because these are our children. But when they win, nobody can tell them that anybody gave them anything. They it's with their own hands that they get their freedom. It's a different type of freedom than what's in One Africa, but it can work together. It's the freedom that says, we will no longer allow, even if they don't know the exact system that's coming. The system we had was unacceptable. We waited and waited patiently. We have no more patience. You totally tried to betray us. Here's the example we made out of the person at the top. And all the rest of y'all had to get out of the way. We took our country back, and we're going to make it work for ourselves and our young people and our children. And we're not asking nobody nothing. We're not making any requests. Us as young people took it over. What that does, it creates a new standard for Africa that says, we don't have to sit around and wait for corruption to fix itself. The power in numbers is real. And if we have to give up 50 lives, now I know I'm gonna go, you brought me on, so you know how I do, right? Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Right now, I would say, I know it's a lot, but 50-1, if you just get one leader and show what happens and say, we will not tolerate this again, that's fine. If they keep doing what they're doing with these numbers, then it's gonna become a numbers game. When we, the young people, take over, we're gonna count every life that you took. And every one of you corrupt ones, until we get those numbers back, we're not going to stop until we get the numbers back. Then we will get back to the progress of reestablishing our state. But we're not going to let you take our lives as if they have no value. We're not doing it. Stepping down is not good enough. You can't take a life and then say, I'm no longer in that position. No, we're going to decide you're not in a position. You don't get to make decisions. You'll make no more decisions. And we're not going to continue to tolerate. We're going to write it down. How many lives are you taking from our future? You're going to pay for that. And everybody involved in that's going to pay for that. And you better get ready. And that's the way that I think that this thing should go. And what it will do, it's a heck of a message. Like, where in the world do you have young people that took over a nation, not talking, not pleading, not begging, with their lives, and saying, we're going all the way. We're taking back over the nation. For the elders that supported us in this, their homes are safe. Their businesses are safe. The ones that supported us, they're fine. We're not going to change who we are as Africans. We love our elders. But you better not have been in our way. Like, we're taking the country back. And once we do that, since we've not run a country, if we want to reestablish things, those who have been good at running the nation and helping us and supporting us, we're going to keep them in their positions. Matter of fact, we'll give them better positions. But the Sahel, One Africa, since they're showing us militarily how to defend what they're doing, we're saying, we're young people. Come and bring what you can show us, how we can build what you built. And we still run it, but you help us get where we need to go. Why wouldn't they do it? They have to do it. Because if they don't help Kenya, then it's going to be the same forces that are over there now trying to destroy the Kenyan people that are going to use those troops instead of going to Haiti to go to Sahel. So we really don't have an option. You have to help us because you are our brothers. We love you. We are One Africa. You One Africa. We're Kenya here. We're One Africa. We're joining One Africa. Help us get ourselves together. We'll be strong. We'll be your best allies because we are you and you are us. I'm saying this is what I'm saying. I don't know what you see.
As always, thoroughly enjoy your very insightful perspective on things. And I definitely agree with you. There is that potential, for that African unity between the Sahel region and Haiti as well. And agree with you. All Africa, America, following on from the civil rights movement, went through considerable destruction of the family, destabilization of its communities. The regions was flooded with drugs. The Black men were being criminalized. Policies, as you were saying, that was reintroduced so that they would be thrown out of their houses, so that it would bring division between a Black man and a Black woman. And once you've broken the Black family, you've essentially broken the community. break the community and the Black nation is broken. And America is still trying to recover from that. And it hasn't recovered yet because, you know, another layer on top of the drugs and another layer on top of the criminalization of the Black men was the media industry and all of that negative imagery and portrayal of Black men, Black women, and the Black family that sowed the seeds of race hate and self-hate. Which, you know, when you add that to the mix, it's a very poisonous and toxic situation. And so we've been through it, lived through it. And similarly, but on a smaller scale, we've lived through that in the UK as well, because we had our uprisings here in the UK. And what came afterwards? The drugs, the criminalization of the men, those who were most articulate within our community were bought off and taken into the local government structures so that they could control, you know, what was said in regards to our community. The police were a law unto themselves when it came to their abusive treatment and brutality against our men. But, you know, by then our community was very fragmented and we're still struggling to recover from those 20 years or so, those 2 decades of policies that were designed to smash the revolution, to smash the rising and the coming together of us as a people. If we don't know it already, family, let this be known. There is an agenda out there among the Western worlds to ensure that Africans do not rise. Their agenda is to ensure that Africa doesn't rise. And if they see any evidence of Africa rising anywhere, they are in their toolbox and they are coming, all guns blazing, on a multiplicity of levels. And we've talked about a number of the levels in the show today. And so, you know, we've got all of that experience to share. These people are not that clever. They tend to use the same old tricks, don't they? Over and over again. And we've been through it and we know how destructive it can be. And we don't want to see our African brothers and sisters go through what our brothers and sisters went through in America after the civil rights movement, what our brothers and sisters went through in the UK after the uprisings of the 1980s in Britain. We know their strategies and we know their devices, and we've got to let our brothers and sisters know of the potential toxic, lethal weapons that could now be coming their way in its various disguises. So yeah, that's their agenda, to kill the uprising, to kill the unity and the coming together. And what's beautiful about the unity on the continent at the moment is that it cuts across religion, it cuts across tribe, it cuts across national borderlines that have been drawn by the West. You know, it's the oneness in terms of that knowledge of who we are, you know, which is powerful. Yeah. And now what we've got to make sure of is that we build on that African pride and we build that African spirit, and we don't allow the Western world to come in and to dilute it or to fragment it in any way or to turn it toxic, you know. So there's a lot of work to do to safeguard what's going on. You know, I'd like to hear from you, beloved. You know, what more could we be doing to actually safeguard, to help to safeguard the African continent youth from being influenced by the toxic Western ways that, you know, is going to happen if we are not focused on Africa, being Africans, developing our own African identity, our own African politics, our own African economics, our own African education systems, and our own African everything. If we're not focused on doing that, and if we're not clear on what it looks like, and if we start allowing their toxic systems and media and education and everything else to get a grip, we've lost it for another couple of generations. Yeah.
I would say a few things. An excellent lead into one of the things I wanted to talk about. If you're talking about toxicity, I can't even make, I was just talking to Brother Amos. You know Brother Amos. We were talking earlier and we were laughing because he was there with me when it happened in Zimbabwe. And I've been trying to not constantly push this, but I have to, because it's becoming literal culture in Africa. I cannot go to the African continent now. I try to go every year, at least once, sometimes more than once. There's no country I go to. I almost feel like God is talking to me, because I'm like, it can't be this bad. Every country I go to, Zimbabwe, Kenya, South Africa, Uganda, wherever I go, somebody calls me the N-word. And every time I remember off the top of my head, it's never with the intent to be an insult. It's like they think that that's what we consider ourselves. And they think it's funny and cool, and that they're showing a brotherhood with me by using the term. And I have to tell them that that's not appropriate and correct. And what I'm seeing now is, and I'm just going to be honest, I know this is going to hurt some people's feelings, but what I say about Black people, we're the most beautiful people on the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really need, just take your natural self, keep yourself clean, do your hair, and do your natural and your little, that's all you need. You don't really need anything else. We don't need to be writing on ourselves. This is where I write. I wrote this one.
My first.
Then I wrote this one.
They are the problem.
And now number 2 just came out. Okay.
Ooh.
This is what, thank you. This is what we write on. These beautiful African bodies of ours. No, we don't write on these. We are beautiful people. From the N-word to filthy music to degeneracy, pornography is spreading wild on the African continent. So I have to start. I've been challenging it. I've always done it. But now I make a point to always, whenever somebody says it in Africa, I just let them know, no. That's a harmful term. Don't use that. My point being, you were asking, what do we have to do? We've become so drunk and used to the sickness that we're involved in. We forgot that it's sickness. I don't want to see tattoo parlors in Africa. We don't need that. That's not what Africa needs. We're beautiful people the way we are. We don't need wig shops. We don't need skin lightening cream. We don't need, those are not the industries we need to be taking. We don't need to be taking strip clubs. And I mean, Africa is becoming more and more like the broken Africans of the West. I'm just being honest. So one of the best ways we can help prevent them from doing it is we have to get people from here who can tell them the error in those ways. Hey, this music, or this noise, I call it Jew noise, this Jew noise that you're listening to, that's funded by people that are not African. This is not something that we paid for. Somebody else funded us to call ourselves N-words, to talk about raping and abusing our children and daughters, to talk about this filth and indecency and pedophilia and all of this filth and backwardness. We have to get there and tell them no. We have to get there and say, this is a big one. Now, I'm going to tell you a big one. And I've said this multiple times. I'm going to say it again. We call it Pan-Africanism. I told you I'm an African nationalist. I had to create a term and a context that I'm part of that is definitive against homophilia, homosexuality, and pedophilia. Why? Because that's one of the biggest threats to, like we talking about Kenya. What is one of the biggest threats that they have? They've done this consistently. When Mike Brown was murdered, young brother Darren Seals, he's the one that was leading the charge with the young people in Ferguson, Missouri. It was the Mike Brown movement. The Black Lives Matter was not anything to do with that movement. It was something that came pushing an LGBTQ agenda, having no agenda for Black people, funded by the Jews. I got to be honest. What the Kenyan youth are doing is beautiful, but it's clear they're going to be Jews and homophiles trying to get in there and take their movement from being organic and genuine. And then what you'll see, I'm telling you, you're going to see this. You're going to start seeing some of these interviews, and it's going to be some lesbian sister with a bald head talking. It's going to be some effeminate male talking. And they're going to try to push the homophiles up front, and those will be the ones that they give funding, and they'll try to steal this movement from our people. I've seen it over and over and over again. Every youth movement that you see has got to wipe out any support system from Jews or homophiles. We're not letting these folks have anything to do with it. We won't take their money. They can't come around. They're not being accepted. Their behavior is not being accepted. If we make sure that and the vulgarity, N-word and this filth and just vulgarity, pornography, if we remove those elements, Jews, homosexuals, and pornographic type filth, if we remove those things, these young people have momentum. They're going to be fine. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Freedom is always hard. That's what makes it beautiful when you get it. Those are the major things in this moment that we do. And last thing I would say, we got to get in with education, because as they're doing this, they're going to want to get more information and knowledge. We want them to get the knowledge that will open their African mind to their African identity, like you said. If we don't jump in front, those of us that understand who we are, then again, these homophiles, these weirdos, these liberal creeps, like the ones in we just talked about in what's that company, Goldman Sachs, that's paying these millions of dollars. All they're gonna teach them is how the women can be over top of the men, be feminists and lesbianism and being single and being a bunch of whores and not being wives and mothers and the women that we respect and love. They're not going to teach them how to be the African women who we've always grown to know and love. Those are the real threats that we have in that regard, in my opinion.
So in agreement with you on that. You have just, added to what we need to be safeguarding Africa against and be warning them that could be coming their way. And at the same time, making them aware that what they've got to hold on to is their African identity, their beautiful African culture, African pride. We've got to be proud of who we are as a people. And, we need to remind our brothers and sisters so that they can know that they are living on the richest piece of real estate in the world. They're in the best place in the world, the weather, the soil, the minerals, the resources, they've got everything they need. They just need to have, the leaders with the right mind to control and manage those resources for the benefit of the people. And if we're going to get leaders tomorrow with the right mind, then they've got to focus today on educating their people from an African-centered perspective. We can no longer continue to allow our children to be educated to have the mind of a European, because if they're educated with a European curriculum, they're going to come out of the system with a European mindset. And that European mind is going to look at Africa in a derogatory way. It's not going to give you a sense of African pride. It's not going to enable you to understand what the minerals and resources are in your land and how you can actually extract it and create, wonderful products from it that you can sell around the world. A Eurocentric education isn't going to teach you that. The Eurocentric education is going to prepare you for jobs that don't exist in Africa. They will prepare you for jobs that only exist in the West. And if you think you're going to go to the West and get one of those jobs, there are many people in the West who are unemployed. In fact, AI is taking over jobs in the West right now. And so jobs are going to be more, on the continent in the future than even in the West, because it's on the continent that development needs to happen and should be happening. And so our people need to from an education point of view, get an Africated education so that they can learn what minerals they need to use to build their bridges, to build their tunnels, to build their railway systems, to improve their communication systems, to put up their satellites. There is a lot of work that needs to be done on the continent of Africa, which means there's a lot of jobs that have to be created. And the youth population is growing and expanding. And so there's a lot of room for creativity, for engineers, for inventors and developers. And so we need visionary leaders on the continent, do we not, who are going to create that space and that environment for the youth enterprise and entrepreneurism and creativity, and at the same time be building the infrastructure to enable all of those wonderful skills and talents that our young people have to grow and to grow into fruition, you know, so every home needs electricity. Every neighborhood should be well lit. Every home should have internet. No child should grow up without getting an African-centered education. No child should go to school hungry. No child should go to school with no shoes on their feet. Every child in the classroom should have a desk, should have a chair, should have access to books and computers, etc. You know, these are some of the minimum standards that need to be agreed upon and acted upon in order to prepare the next generation, should they not be doing, to be the leaders and the movers and shakers, so that we're not continuing as Africans to be left behind, to be the beggars of the world. You know, and so young people are saying, look, we're fed up of these leaders who go to meetings and sit down there and sleep. We're fed up of these leaders who are signing contracts without even reading them and committing our countries to 50 years, 100 years of exploitation. We're not having it. They're saying it's too, you know, this is a new day, a new day. And so very much, you know, from an economic perspective, from a spiritual perspective, in terms of our identity and our ideological outlook, it's all got to change. We've got to stop, have we not, seeing the world from the Eurocentric eyes, because that's a different world. You know, we've got to develop Africa. They're going towards the Industrial Revolution, AI, you know, robots doing everything, no jobs for their people. They're not going to need as many people in their population as well. Whereas Africa is growing. Africa's got the space, you know, and the need for the development. So the potential is huge. Let me hear you add to what the new Africa should be looking like from, you know, your perspective, beloved.
I think that what we have as African people is a huge benefit, being that even before this period, we just have an inclination towards doing what's natural. So in other words, when I'm in Africa, most of the places I go, they don't eat a whole lot of sweet stuff, not a whole bunch of sugar in it. They're just more inclined to do that which is natural. Now, of course, they've gotten, you know, getting more westernized, but the inclination is to do what is natural. So because that is our inclination, as long as we as African people in the West, who are not overly Europeanized, get in and can help, we can help Africa have the best of both worlds. What they're doing in one Africa, they're getting weapons from Turkey and weapons to militarize. You have to be modern in terms of your militarization so that you can defend all of the wealth and the beauty that you have. At the same time, once you leave your military post and go home, you don't have to have the same structure of a house looking the same way that it looks in the West. You can have it. I've seen you took us, the hotel you had us staying in Zimbabwe. Oh my God, brothers and sisters. I'm telling you, I've been around the world. I've been a lot around Africa. I've been in hotels 5-star. I don't even know if they have 6 stars. I haven't been to Dubai, but I've been to some fantastic hotels. This hotel in Zimbabwe, it was like you were in your own little hut, but it had all the things that you would need, electricity and everything, but you didn't feel like you were in a hotel down there. It was much nicer than that. Like it had an entirely African, holistic, natural feel. The showers were beautiful. Everything was natural. The food was great. Oh man, we went out and they had the center place that we sat and we all ate around the food and they had the big, I mean, it was African, yet the quality of what you were getting was even better than what you get in the 4- and 5-star hotels in the United States of America. I'm not exaggerating. We can actually do that because we don't have to Once we start stopping all these wars and then concentrating on development, that couldn't have to just be a hotel. That could be the way we structure our homes, because we got enough resources that in the Congo, that could be the standard person's house. You know, you young and you something. This is the house you get when you get out of school. You know, Gaddafi in Libya used to give, if you got married, you would get a house. You know, like he had these great things. So it was sponsoring and encouraging people to get married. Why couldn't these African nations say, hey, you finish your schooling, you know, your first vehicle, your first motorcycle, the government sponsors it, you know, because you finished your schooling. So everybody has something to ride with. Before they get their car, they got their little motorcycle they can go on. You know, we can tailor the African experience to whatever we want it to be, because we have enough wealth to do it once we have the military capacity to defend it. So we need to, the vision I see, what you're saying was the same. I'm seeing technology that allows us to defend ourselves against the vipers. And then the internal life system of Blackness just being natural. Every sister that does hair is going to be rich, because sisters always want to get their hair done and they want their natural done and they want to look different than the next sister. So she constantly got to come up with a new way to do some hair. That's cool. We always have people that make beauty products, because sisters love beauty, but they want their Black beauty, which means nobody else is making those products. We don't even want anybody else's product. We want our own Black made products, which means we don't know what a poverty is, and we don't know what joblessness is. Every brother that wants his nice cut, we got barbers everywhere. We making our own. Since we have the resources and the metals in Africa, why aren't we making razors? Why aren't we making barber clippers? Why aren't we making clippers? We have the tech. We have enough scientists and builders and people and mechanics that can make these things. Why aren't we making them? We should be making all the things, and we will be. That's the Africa we're going to. What they're doing, like one of the things I love that they're doing in Burkina Faso, the textiles industry, he's lifting the textile industry right now. So they're making a lot of their own cotton. They had a large cotton producer anyway. I didn't know that. Now they're producing even more cotton and different types of cotton. And essentially where it's going, I don't know how many people are familiar with Shyam the Great, but Dr. Chancellor Williams in The Destruction of Black Civilizations, he talks about some of his greatest leaders of our people. His favorite of all time was Shyam the Great. And he was somewhere, if I'm not mistaken, around that region where we're looking at now. And Shyam, which made him so great, he said is because he focused on economic development. So he didn't do a military takeover. It was more economic development in textiles and different industries, where he just made the whole place rich and wealthy. And so that was his revolution. And he was like one of the greatest leaders of our people. If you put his name in there, look up Shyam the Great, you'll see more about him. Dr. Chancellor Williams said that was his favorite leader of all times, African leader. We're going in the direction, and the key of it is this. We have to get rid of the corruption. You can't produce that with a bunch of greedy vipers at the top that want to eat everything. And you got to have the military to protect it. We get those things done, which is happening now, and then young people take it over. Young people aren't sitting down just trying to keep everything the same way it is. They want to move, they want to develop, they want to grow, they want to change, they want to make things better. Let's empower the young people to take this thing and run with it and make the Africa that we've always dreamed of. It is our time now. The African world is in revolution. What we're doing right now is revolution. There's some young brothers and sisters on the continent, they're going to watch this. They're going to say, that's what I always wanted to do. The young ones in Kenya are going to say, this is what we're doing. We know what we have to do. We're going to open minds, and people are going to do what we're saying. The whirlwind is spinning. Garvey is with us today.
Yes, he is indeed. We're going to rise up the spirit of Marcus Messiah Garvey. Loved all of what you had to say there, my brother. Yes, indeed. We have to create the Africa that we want to see. As you said, you know, we've been saying the minerals are there, the resources are there. Our young people are there with their skills and talents and potential. Yeah, it's up to the leadership now to create the environment in order for all of that talent to flourish, whilst at the same time protecting their population and their people. Very important, because, oh my gosh, we We know only too well the spirit of the warmongers out there. So I think so far, you know, what's been clear, hopefully, from this conversation, family, is that we need to have a very different perspective and a very different outlook to the Western world. This came through on the show that I was hosting earlier today, actually, as well, about the importance for us as Africans to have an African-centered worldview, an African-centered paradigm, and that we did not take with us going forward the Western worldview, because their world is a very different world, you know, to the sort of world that we are likely to want to create. You know, we are not going to want, for example, you know, we're a people of nature, put it that way. And we like to be at one with nature. And that's so, so important to us as a people. And so there are others in this world who seem to be anti-nature. And we don't want to take those sorts of projects, programs, initiatives, etc., into our African worldview. And we've all got a role to play in bringing about the better Africa and the more improved Africa. Yeah, in terms of women and their beauty products, you're absolutely right. If you look on the walls of the tombs of Ma'at, the temples of Egypt or Kemet, you will see the women were beautifying themselves from back then, from head to toe. And so, brothers and sisters who do the metals, start doing the work, make the jewelry, make the anklets, make the bracelets, make the necklaces, make the tiaras, make them look beautiful and sparkling. The women will buy it. We love to beautify ourselves as ladies, and we love our little trinkets, okay? I don't think there's any change in that, no matter how loudly some of our men beat their drums.
You know,
yeah.
you always see me in the shirts that I wear. There's a reason that I wear these. And you've met the sister. You've met Sister Lynette.
Yeah.
When I went to Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Yes. When I first went there, I was looking for a seamstress. And when I walked in and saw what she was producing, I was like, this is the one. I mean, and she didn't even have anything for men. It was all women stuff, but just her style, everything. I said, she got it. And so we connected. And since that time, pretty much every time you see me, I'm either wearing something from Zimbabwe or something from Ghana. But what I wear, if you put it out on the regular market, could compete in terms of the pricing with anything that you see in Goldman's, any of these places. What are some of the big? I don't even go to North.
Oh yeah, I don't even do name brands, but yeah, name brands. We'll just say the name brands.
Neiman Brothers and Mario, all that stuff. Here's the thing. Literally, when I go places where people who are dressed like that, they ask me, bro, where'd you get that, man? And I get it for a fraction of the price that they pay for $600-700 for these types of things. And the quality is better. Mm-hmm. I said to myself, and I you know, we trying to work, it's slow, but why wouldn't every Black man on the continent want to dress like this? Not just the continent. Why wouldn't every Black man around the world want to say, I'm an African, I only get stuff that's handmade. I only get my handcrafts, particularly if you got a little bit of money. Like, nah, if it's not handmade, I don't want it, you know, because first of all, you're helping your own people.
Yeah.
But you also look better than everybody else. I mean, just
there is that uniqueness, isn't there, about us as Africans that we've got to be proud of. You talked about, you know, the uniqueness that we can create around our housing and our style of housing, you know, on the continent, and the uniqueness of how we dress. I mean, I just love, you know, the African attire. I love when the men are throwing the material over their shoulders and they're wearing their gowns and their silks, you know, rather than being stiff with the tie, choking them around the neck. No, that's not us. That's not Africa. There is something beautiful and wonderful and unique about the African dress, the African material. And I do love also, you know, the way the women can, you know, create those hats as well out of materials. Oh, I wish I could do all of that. You know, there is something beautiful and unique about our cultural dress, and we shouldn't lose it, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it. you know, and we should wear our cultural dress with pride. I absolutely agree with you, my brother. And, you know, that's why when you come on these shows and you wear, you know, your shirts, you're encouraging and you're inspiring someone, I'm sure, you know, to drop the plain, boring white shirt and tie and get some African material and get something, you know, more unique and special made up.
What I wanted to do, and you just said the thing, and this is what I love about it. I knew what I wanted in my head, but I don't know how to make no clothes. When I went there with sister, because what I said I want to do, we have the traditional African attire, and I have some of those already. So I had those. I said, and then we had the Western stuff. I'm not really into the Western stuff, but some of the styles halfway are pretty cool, but I just don't like the way they look. I said, I'm going to craft something in my head. I drew it on a piece of paper. And I said to her, make this for me. And she made it. And once she made a couple of them, I brought some of them back and started selling them. The brothers liked it. I told them, this is what they like. Since that time, I don't have to tell her anything. I'm saying that to say, like what you're seeing, and sometimes you see it with just the collar by itself, and then sometimes you see it with the regular collar. It's a new wave African look. Like what says to you that this is African? Something about the print. Nothing specific. You just know that that's not regular stuff. But it has a new age thing, so it's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Young brothers like, yo, man, I like that shirt. Where you get that? And I'm like, that's what I want. I want the young people to have multiple different styles. If they like the older style, get the older dashiki style. If you like the newer style, let's take what we have, this creativity,
yeah,
and energy. I mean, these young people, they ready to do it.
Yeah. And you know why as well? We need to capture that energy of the young people around the African fashion. Because if we don't, the West is going to capture the energy and the fashion that they're coming with. We've got this famous football over here called Ian Wright. And oh my gosh, they had him in a skirt and roller skates. It was like, what? You know, one of our men, you know, hugely successful ex-footballer, and they had him in a skirt. And you see, if we don't get our young people excited about African fashion and what a man ought to look like in his clothes, they're going to feminize them, you know. So we have got to, you know, take control of our identity, instill that African pride. We are the ones who have to take control of our African dress. We have to take control of our new Africa, how it's going to look, how we're going to integrate, you know, our new buildings with nature itself, how we're going to make space for the animal kingdom and the marine life, even the fisheries areas. You know, we've got our work cut out. But, you know, the other thing that I noticed when I was doing some reading, and I was reminded of again, I suppose, when I was doing some reading, is that back in the days in ancient times, you know, families had their trade. Families had their trade. And so, you know, you had families that were blacksmiths, families that were weavers and sewers, and families who were shoemakers, and families who were dealing with their metals and the mining, and families who were creating, you know, jewelry and weapons and, you know, whatever you could create out of the metals, you know, pots and pans and spoons. You know, these were families who specialized in agriculture, farming, as families who specialized in animal husbandry, you know. And so we need to get back to that as well, because when we become specialists, you know, then everyone's got something to trade. Everyone's got something to offer. Then, you know, we can start to create our own marketplaces as well. And if I want shoes, I can go to the family over there that specializes in shoes. If I want to buy, you know, my kitchenware, I can buy from these families over here who are all displaying all of their wonderful works, you know, for the kitchen. If I want my house designed and built in a unique African style, I can go to these family of architects and house builders and stonemasons over there who could do it. You know, we got to get back to that, you know, and that way we're creating jobs and opportunities and an economic position for families and entire communities and ultimately our nation.
I think a lot of us, like I'm listening to you, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but you just
Oh, it's
inspired.
okay.
When I'm hearing you, I'm hearing, even I think maybe I have said it. If I didn't say it, I believed it. And I hope I didn't say it, but I'm actually seeing a different vision now. There was a time when we used to say, it may not be in my lifetime, but one day we're going to be free. It's going to be in our lifetime. Like, I'm actually watching it. It's just, they're doing it in one Africa. It's not if, ands, or but. They're doing it in Kenya. It's that this stuff doesn't work by itself. So and that's really what I wanted the discussion to be, the African World Revolution. It includes us in the diaspora, but we have to find what we can contribute. Like what we're doing now is contributing our intellectual capital. We're using our voice and our thinking to share, and their African youth, when they hear this, they're going to pick it up because we're speaking in the spirit of liberators. You're Jamaican. I'm the Irritated Genie. The spirit. I might not be from Haiti, but I got the spirit of the Haitian Revolution. I want to fight. I want to do whatever it takes to get freedom, and I enjoy it, whatever it takes. Let's do it. We were revolutionary. We're given that. That's what we have right in this moment to offer. But there are other brothers and sisters who have so much to offer. So much. There's a brother who made a machine that you just put down and it pulls moisture out of the atmosphere and makes clean water. He's right out of Texas. There's no reason why in regions where it's difficult to get stuff, but you got billions of dollars of resources coming out of the ground going to our enemies. We take control of those resources until we get the water supply systems going fantastic. We just buy a bunch of these from our own brother. He's a black man in America who makes machines. So now you can be in the most remote region. You got a machine to just get you nice, clean water anytime you want it. Then he'll teach people how to fix the little parts of it and everything like that. And then we got it. He gets paid. We have what we need and we all win. But we got to engineer these. There's a young brother in Zimbabwe, I believe it is. I believe he's in Zimbabwe, who made a television that works without electricity. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Yes, indeed. I can't remember his name. Chicken Bob or something. It's an unusual name, but yes, he made a TV that runs off of radio waves, a helicopter that runs off of radio waves. He made a car that runs without fuel. But of course, they tried to poison him 3 times. I don't even know if he's still alive or where he is. They invited him to go over to America, where he almost died. He probably went underground after that. But too many of our people as well. You see, this is why, when we talk about an African perspective and getting an African education will let our people know that, when it comes to your inventions, you have to keep them secret. You don't go telling, the West how you did things, because all they want to do is militarize it, use it against you, and then kill you so that you can't share the technology with anybody else, And a lot of our people think, I've created something new. I need someone from the West to sponsor me now. And that is the end of how many inventors have just disappeared and been murdered.
There's 2 things. What you just said is 100%. I agree with you. We can't be going out there announcing that we got a victory. You don't tell because our people don't know that we have competitors. These folks ain't our friends. They competitors. So that's one side. I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's the other end of it as well. And it's what we were talking about before. Unfortunately, and this is the part we got to fix as well. Both of these got to be fixed. So you go to somebody that's African, and either they don't have the vision and want to do anything with it, or they want to steal it from you. So it's like, we got to start having the character to say, listen, if I'm rich and this young person has a great idea, inventor or a middle-aged person, I don't know what age they are, they black, I'm going to help them get rich. I'm already rich.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna make my money too, but
yeah,
they're gonna get.
that is the African mindset that we need. The Eurocentric mindset is I'm rich and I got here all by myself, and you've got to try and get there all by yourself, and I'm not going to help you. My bank account is spilling over and bursting at the seams, but it doesn't matter that you can't find your food tomorrow. No, the African mindset is that my wealth is your wealth. You know, that's why Dangote, look what he did with the oil fields in Nigeria. Look what he was trying to do for the nation of Nigeria, you know, but they wrapped him up in oil politics to try and cripple him. And then you've got Tinubu as the president, who should be coming out and supporting him, who's obviously part of the oil cartel and being fed by the oil cartel, not doing anything to support, you know, Dangote, their own man. Imagine, and this is what we're talking about. When you've got the African mindset and the African mentality, you want to support your nation. You want to support your people. You want to see them elevated and grow. And what Dangote and that oil field have the potential to do for Nigeria. Right now, the Nigerian economy and currency is spiraling downwards. It's almost worthless. And if Dangote was to get the backing and the support from Tinubu and the government to make his oil field a success. I mean, it's ludicrous, the situation that Nigeria is in at the moment with its own oil. Its oil is being refined elsewhere and then sold back to them as refined oil. And there are so many kickbacks and so many big businesses that are benefiting from that arrangement that they don't want any interruption or interference with it whatsoever. I mean, the oil industry in Nigeria has just that oil industry alone, one of numerous potential industries, but that one industry alone has the potential to make Nigeria one of the wealthiest countries on the continent. Yeah, if
Nigeria could literally, I'm not being figurative, literally, Nigeria has first of all, and people get mad at me when I say this sometimes, I'm telling the truth. If I wanted somebody to compete, if I had to pick people from somewhere in the world to compete on a math contest, it's two places I would go. I either want a Nigerian or a Sudanese. And if I had to pick only one, I would go to the Nigerian because worst come to worst, they might cheat. Like the Nigerians going to get it. Nigerians are brilliant. They're aggressive, and you can't come up with a problem that they can't find a solution. They have no fear. The Nigerian at their best, culturally and spiritually and intellectually, the Nigerian, you really can't compete with them because they just got everything. They're fierce fighters too. The problem is that as great and fierce and brilliant as they are just as corrupt. So it's like, it's a balance. We need to get rid of the balance. If Nigeria would function like you talking about, Dangote, I know you're talking about, yeah, he's like the richest man in Africa.
That's right.
This brother is an example of a Nigerian. It's like, you're not going to tell me I can't do it. I'm going to get it done. And he gets it done. That's how Nigerians are.
Yeah.
They could literally make their streets. I'm not exaggerating. I know he does cement. He made his wealth off cement. They could literally have their streets made in gold. Yeah. I'm not exaggerating. Like they have the kind of wealth and capacity. There would be no sickness in Nigeria. Like they have the kind of skill set. There would not be any trash in Nigeria. They say, Lagos is, it's not as clean as it should be. There's no reason that Nigeria isn't the cleanest, wealthiest place on the planet, except we have not organized ourselves and gotten rid of the corruption. If we got rid of the corruption in Nigeria, between the wealth of Nigeria, the Congo, and South Africa, just those three together, the wealth in the ground, and if we got rid of everybody that wasn't black and had the black people working together, not exploiting each other and killing each other, but working together, the entire, matter of fact, those three countries, Nigeria, Congo, and South Africa, and I'm not even talking about the whole rest of the continent, I'm just talking about just those three countries, have the mineral wealth that if nobody else in Africa had wealth, all of Africa would be wealthy. But instead of spreading it throughout the continent, you got 2 or 3 people in each place wanting to eat everything. You got to you still have your mute.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on this. I'm with you on this. You know, the potential of Nigeria is absolutely phenomenal. Agree. Uh, you know, and you just took me when you were talking about the streets paved in gold. You know, this is what England used to claim their streets looked like in the books in Jamaica. I mean, my parents actually told me, my mom said they used to read in the books in school that in England the streets were paved in gold. You know, England doesn't even have its own gold fields, gold mines, but the gold mines are in Africa, and there are plentiful in West Africa as well. And yes, indeed, the streets could literally be paved in gold. And years ago, in ancient times when we had control of our wealth and our resources, I mean, it's just unimaginable. Just, you know, the writers would write about the horses, you know, that and their regalia, and how it would all be they would be wearing gold on their horses, and all intricately designed, all these beautifully designed covers for the horses, and gold chandeliers, and it's just crazy. Yeah, when we used to mine gold and make our own produces with it. It was phenomenal, and we all know the story of Mansa Musa and the amount of gold that he took when he went to the Hajj, and you know, just exposed the wealth of Africa to the world, and the rest is history, so to speak. You know, but such was the extent of the gold that we had, you know, during those times. And during those times, you know, it wasn't just about an African kingdom; it was about African empires. The Songhai Empire is basically today's Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. You know, we just need to add Senegal when they wake up and stop meeting and dating and dancing with France again. You know, that Senegal would give us that access to the ports as well. And we're talking about the old Songhai Empire, you know, re-emerging. So not only is the spirits of our revolutionaries, you know, being resurrected here among the Sahel kings, but also the old Songhai Empire is being resurrected again as well, and all of its potential wealth, and then the wealth of this creativity and the skills of the people in there as well. But you know, imagine if you had Dangote in one of those three countries. Dangote, build your oil well in Burkina Faso.
Yes.
Dangote, you know, he invested billions of his own money. I'll have to find out how much it was that he invested. And he's got to the point now where he's thinking of having to sell it, you know, because the oil cartels are getting together and are refusing, you know, to allow him access to the oil at a competitive price. So he might have to build his own oil pipe, you know, to pump the oil into his refinery. So he's built this multi-billion-pound or dollar refinery, which basically, you know, should be firing on all cylinders, but isn't at the moment because of this standoff that he's getting from the other oil companies. And what's his government doing about it? Absolutely nothing. And this really exposes as well the extent of the corruption in the government itself, not only in terms of the oil cartel, but also in terms of the government's own oil fields. Because I was learning that the government has about 4 oil fields, national oil fields, that it finances and invests billions in on an annual basis that don't even function. And it's in the interest of those oil cartels that it remains that way.
Let me say, so that takes us to kind of the source of the conversation or the context. What were we talking about? We were talking about what does this African world revolution look like? I want to remind myself and everybody that's listening, and I can't measure it because I don't know that there's a measurable way to do this, but before I saw what's happening in One Africa, I heard Dr. Arikana Chiambari Kwao. talking about the exploitation of France in Africa. And I knew they were bad, but I didn't know it was that. I mean, I didn't know the details. Oh my gosh, she horrified me. And from the time she started putting the good word out until now, what I've seen is amazing. I have to say, and again, I don't have a way to prove it, some percentage of what we see now happening came from this Black woman born in Zimbabwe, made her wealth in America, taking the message back to the world, African world community, and saying something needs to be done about the French exploitation of this region of Africa. And people hearing it and finally saying there's something needs to be done, then these men said, we're the men to do it, and they did it. I'm saying that to say, she just used her word. It wasn't her financing this. It wasn't her. What did she do? She used her word to articulate the reality. It was a Black woman. You say, well, what does that mean? I'm saying the women and men equally, we have a responsibility for our people. She's a sister. She used her voice. That was her platform, her voice to share what was going on to the world. And people said, we can't tolerate that. And we see what we see here today. And I would say that in keeping with what you're saying, because it's taking me somewhere. When you brought that up, what I start thinking is, yeah, because a lot of that oil that you see getting controlled in Nigeria is done through Blacks who are Islamic, which you were talking about before, these religions and stuff. So again, I go back to, we have Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, one Africa. And everything about them, I'm not making any criticism. I love what they're doing. I would say what's so beautiful about Haiti is that they neither used Islam nor Christianity to win that war. They went to natural African spirituality, Vodun, which means not only did a voice from the West be able to speak a word, well, really a voice from the East that came to the West that went to the East, so she's all over the place, be able to create the spin this. But now, if we're talking about one Africa, looking at what's happening in Haiti, they all speak French. So they all can speak the language. Well, and they have the Kikuyu soldiers over in there. Why is it that we can't now say that we have to invest in the spirituality of our own to do the same thing that the Haitians were able to do, so that now we can break some of these ties with the Africans who are tied to the Muslims, or the Africans who are tied to the Europeans through Christianity and through Islam. I'm not beating up on anybody's religion, but I'm saying, what belief system do we have that we're tied to that can control the economics and the cultural development of the African world community and the military? What is our spirituality that we can connect to that nobody can break because it's only us? We can't break the Arab through Islam. Islam is it. We can say we Muslim, that's fine. You can't break the Arab in his own religion. You can't do it. You can't break the white man in Christianity. You're not going to rise up in Christianity and convert the white man to nothing. But what do we have that no one can rise up into and take over? That's what we need to have spiritually for ourselves. And why not now? This is the right time.
Agree. Now is the right time indeed. And it's so, so important. And so it goes back to what we're talking about, the importance of that African paradigm, that African mindset, how we do our politics, the African way, how we run our legal system has to be the African way, how we build our houses has to be the African way, how we dress has to be the African way, how we worship has to be the African way, how we support our people has to be the African way. It's unbelievable that just imagine in Britain, you've got big business that invests, and I've seen how much he's invested. I found it here, 20 billion. He built a 650,000 barrel per day oil refinery at a cost of 20 billion from his own money, for his people. Okay, he did that for his people. Just imagine a rich, wealthy businessman in the UK doing that and the government turning their back on it. It would be absolutely unheard of. That government would be out of office in no time whatsoever. But here we have in Nigeria a man who has invested 20 billion of his own money to build an oil refinery for his country that the government didn't even have to put a penny in. All they need to do is stand up and back it and support and open up the channels so that they can get some of Nigeria's oil for itself going through his oil refinery so that he can refine the oil. Now, what's going to happen if the oil starts pumping through Dangote's oil refinery? Nigerians will be able to get cheaper oil. What does that mean? It means that they'll be able to run their motorbikes, their cars, far cheaper, which means business expenses would be far cheaper. Businesses would spring up around the oil sector, more gas stations, oil stations, people being able to run machinery, people being able to run factories, more electricity, cheaper. This could be the spark for the industrial revolution and the industrial boom that Nigeria is waiting for and needs to turn around its country and to save its plummeting naira. What's the matter with the government? Why it doesn't see the potential here?
I want to say
only concerned about his own pocket when this is something that could, substantially increase the size of his greedy pocket, as well as, boost the economy of the entire nation.
When you were talking before, you were saying we got to stop going and telling everybody what we're going to do. And I was saying that's true. That's one thing that we do that's terrible. And the other thing we do is when we do have something and we try to go to our own brothers and sisters, then this is what we run into. So here you have Nigerians. Here you have a Nigerian. He's not even from another country. So this is one of their countrymen who's saying, hey, we can make ourselves independent. Look what I've done. And it was so interesting. When I saw the interview, it was being done by like a Pakistani or I don't know where she was from, but it did an interview with him about it. And I'm like, why isn't this interview being done by an African person saying something needs to be done here about this? And I'm looking at it and I'm going, this is part of the problems that we have, because what it means is the Nigerian government, ultimately, there's some greedy players at the top, but no, it's deeper than that. They're controlled by people outside of Nigeria who are not African. And if we know how Nigeria is operated, the people that control it are in the north. They're Muslim. Nigeria is not controlled. People thought it was Christians. No, the Igbo, they have, a little wealth or whatever, but the real ones are in North Africa. They're Muslim. And they go back and forth. Their relationship is primarily with Saudi Arabia. So people don't know that there's a European influence, but there's a Saudi Arabian influence too. So what we're looking at is Nigeria at the top looks like they're Black people, but a lot of times those Black people are connected and serving the interests of Arabs and Europeans. So here you have an African who's in Nigeria who can't lift Nigeria because he has to go through Africans who are placeholders for Arabs and Europeans, which is why the leadership we have in One Africa, remember, ECOWAS was threatening to go and attack these three nations. Why? Because the white folks told them to. I'm going to say it again. I don't make it complex. You got to.
ECOWAS? Nigeria, Tinubu.
White folks told them, go in there and do something about that. Yes, sir, boss. So you literally have rich slaves running countries in Africa. And now that you have three free men who have made good partnerships, who are warriors of their own, who've taken over their regions, and now say, look, let's partner in arrangement with one another and collectively partner with a larger, bigger player on the field. Now they can maintain what they have. I'm going to be honest. The way of the future of Africa is with our three kings. It's the way of One Africa. And I'm be honest, African nations are either going to go that way or they're going to be made to go that way. Because you can't be no African and not be going that direction. That's liberation, that's freedom. We got to become less negotiable as Black people. If you want to do this, they ain't no if you want nothing. What they're doing is working. The people are happy. The people are inspired. The young people are dressing with their own clothing, going and getting educated. They're coming out of this poverty. They're coming out of sorrow and feeling sorry for ourselves, despair, and they're rising up. That's what we want. That's what's going to happen. And now we got to understand it's going to get militarized. That is what we don't want, what we see in the Congo, with people getting murdered and tortured over some resource in the ground. First of all, it's their resource in the ground. Why are you getting it out of the ground? So that you can enrich yourself on behalf of somebody in another country that don't even look like our people. That system is going to get destroyed. And it's going to get destroyed. It's not even going to take that long. But over the next 50 years, it's not a nice guy's trip. If you believe in African people, it's a beautiful trip, but it's a fight. Haiti is not going to get what it wants. Cherizier, Brother Barbecue, he not out there talking. He got a hammer. And then you see the men standing around him, they got hatchets. They're like, machetes, like, we're going to get freedom. And that's how African people get freedom. Ain't no talking. We talk to each other when we can, but most times you can't do that. You got to go get it. And we're going to get it. And so that means when we have a brother like in Nigeria who has the solutions, two things have to happen. One, if he can't do it there, we have to figure out where he can go, like you said, and do what he does and be appreciated. And then two, we got to make it so there is no place that there's a there where he can't do it. That's right. Which means for Nigeria, there's no explanation, no excuse whatsoever why Nigeria wouldn't take what that man has produced in Nigeria that revolutionizes the whole process of them getting oil. Nigeria has its own oil. Why does it ship the oil out to get refined when it can just ship it right there?
Right. Exactly. And, it's for the people now of Nigeria and for those of us outside Nigeria who see the sense and the value of Dangote's refinery to be making a lot of noise about it. Just like you said, our beautiful queen, Arikana Chimboy, how she made a lot of noise about, the French agreement that was crippling, the French, those 14 French countries. Now we can see, as a result of Dangote's refinery, how, the Gabal actually work in the oil sector and how they are monopolizing and crippling the country's economy by these arrangements that we've got. And we've got to decry these arrangements as totally unacceptable and smash them up so that Dangote's oil refinery can be refining oil for Nigerians so that they can benefit. That one oil refinery isn't going to cripple the whole oil industry. It will just allow, Nigerians to be able to eat 2 meals a day. But no, they don't want that, do they? No, So this is the challenge, and this is what we're up against. The Western world wanting to keep all of Africa down, by not even allowing, wanting, as you were saying at the beginning, for even one country to rise, because should one country rise, their biggest fear is that the rest of Africa will follow like a swarm behind that one country. And with Nigeria being one of the largest in terms of population countries in the whole of Africa, with the level of intelligence that you was talking about, that I agree with, that they actually have, they have the potential to be soaring, not just flying, soaring. Look at that oil refinery that Dangote built. One man. Huh? And I mean, and what? And it works. He needs to be supported 100% by the government, the people, all Africa, and I certainly hope that our brothers in the Sahel region who also have oil call on him to build their oil fields for them and oversees its development. He can do it. What a man. Oh my gosh.
And I'm gonna add something in here, and it hit me to add. And I know it kind of takes the conversation off of where it is, but not so much. Because it's the underpinning underbelly nobody ever talks about. So I'm gonna just go ahead and talk the underbelly. When we see those three men, our three kings, putting the French out of that region of Africa, the unspoken reality is, I don't know if people saw very recently in Burkina Faso, Baba Traore says they've outlawed homosexuality and anything of the like. So they didn't just outlaw homosexuality. They whatever, because there's so much freaky stuff going on with these French that they're leaving behind as culture. They like whatever it is illegal. Like, we don't want this culture. What I'm saying is, if I had to bet, I would say the French/Jews, definitely French, are probably the most pedophilic raping of boys and men in Africa. So when you look at Cameroon, when you look at Senegal, when you look at Burkina Faso, when you look at Niger, when you look at Mali, it is not spoken. I've even talked to somebody in Cape Verde, where those were the Portuguese. The level of the molestation of boys is something nobody talks about. Why am I bringing that up? I'm starting to see a pattern where you see, just like Haiti, one of the issues that Haiti had back in the day was that the French were so much into raping men, the Haitians were like, we're not going to tolerate this. And they became absolutely fierce because they were like, this is not tolerable behavior, which is why they had, part of the reason they had such a fierce fight. Black men like, this is not us. We're not doing it. We're men. So wherever you see the French, you see that, just like if you saw the Olympics. I don't know if people saw the beginning of the Olympics. If you watched it, they had some big gay Last Supper thing with transsexuals. I mean, this just happened yesterday. Like this, anybody who watched it knows what I'm talking about. Like a super gay something another. I don't even know what that, with a blue dude. There was a transsexual naked dude with a bunch of weird stuff. The level of homophilia that they're involved in with Jews, that's Israel too, Jews and the French. There's a lot of Jews in France. The reason I'm bringing it up is because when you see them putting the French out of those regions, it's not spoken. They're also putting out homosexuality. It's not spoken, but I'm saying it's a quiet, severe, intense war. And the remnants of that are still left behind because they've molested so many people. There's still some homos that's running around. And they're like, we got to push this culture back. Why am I bringing this up when we talk about Nigeria? I'm just going to tell the truth. I did not know this, but every single Nigerian I've run it past, every one of them has acknowledged it. And I've asked ones from the north who are Muslim. I found this out from a Nigerian. It broke my heart. In most countries, the homosexuality comes through Christianity. But I found out talking to a Nigerian, and like I said, I've confirmed it. In Nigeria, it's not the Christians. It's the Muslims in the north, the imams, who make the molestation of boys is a basic ritual thing. That's what they do. It's not spoken of. Nobody talks about it. But when I ask brothers who are Muslim from the north, is this part of the culture up there? They molest the little boys. They put their heads down. These Nigerians not going to lie to you. They're like, yeah. These are Muslim Nigerians that tell me, yeah, it's true. So I'm like, what? So what I'm seeing is in a lot of these ultra corrupt places, it's weird, but where you see, it's not 100%, but where you see a lot of this corruption, there's a lot of homosexuality. There's a lot of pedophilia. It's just, I've been doing it long enough to run into this and see that. So what we're seeing in One Africa is beautiful on multiple levels. It's very similar to Haiti. They're not just putting out the physical Euro, they're putting out the European cultural behavior and saying it publicly. Like that's why I say in Baba Traore, they made it illegal. Why are they making something illegal if it's not a problem? It is a problem. And they're fixing the problem. Well, I'm saying that to say in Nigeria and Ghana, I ain't telling you what I think, in Ghana, it's spreading like wildfire. This behavior is spreading like wildfire. And a lot of it is happening because they're bringing black-skinned people from the West that we were talking about. What are the things that we have to protect them from? We have to protect our people. We have to, if I had to say one last thing, because people get where I'm going, a lot of the people are bringing these bad behaviors from the West and pushing that stuff in Africa. They bring it, they got a little bit of money, they into this sick, perverted behavior, and then they go over there and start spreading it and molesting people over there, sponsoring young people's schooling. These are black now, black homophiles sponsoring their schooling, then molesting them. I know I just talked to somebody who just came back and they told me they saw it happening while they were there. Okay, so I'm telling you that this is what's happening. What we should do, you were asking if I'm going to be very definitive. We should put a team together to go with a system of cultural destruction, a systematic broken down formula of what the West will try to do to harm their nations, and say, here are our solutions that we can help you with, because we've experienced these things. We know when they're giving you something that they say is for your health, but it's not for your health, it's to harm you. Here's the protocol of what they're doing and what their objective is. Here's how we can fix it. Here are these things that have happened. Here's how you take a community that's been involved with that, retrain them to know that this is wrong, and get them going the right direction. We can do that. I mean, we've been exposed to this. We know it, and we understand. We've studied it. We've had time to read books and intellectualize it. What good is it sitting amongst each other and intellectualizing it here when it's being taken over to Africa while Africa is in a revolt? Why can't we help that revolt by keeping it clean and protecting Africa from the demons with our skin here in the West? That's what we can do to help Africa.
Absolutely. Thank you so, so much, my brother, Irritated Genie, for your invaluable contribution on the show today. And if there are any books that you can recommend, please do post the links under this recording, under the video, so that people can get those books and learn of the experiences post the civil rights movement, etc., so that they don't have to go through it again, but are aware of the tactics of the West and definitely what we could be coming their way. And absolutely agree with you. So in terms of that paradigm shift that we've been talking about throughout the show today, where we make that move away from the culture of the West, that includes leaving behind their seediness, and where they have been able to infiltrate our countries on the continent, as we kick them out, yes, take all their slackness, nastiness, and seediness with them as well, and replace and put back in its place, our traditional African culture and African values and African way of life, which is man, woman, and child. The family is the cornerstone of the success of our nations. And man, woman, and child, no other combination works for us. It's worked for us from the beginning of time, and it will continue to work for us until the end of time. And so, yes, we need to take back our African culture, our African spirituality, in place of the Muslim and the Christian spirit, which, isn't benefiting us as Africans at all. We need to replace their modality with the African modality and way of doing things at a political level, environmental, everything that we do now. We need to go back to what is just so beautiful and unique about us as Africans, and bring that uniqueness into everything we do with pride as Africans, with confidence as Africans, with the spirit of oneness as Africans, with the discipline and that love for our people. This is what we've got to do. We are out of time now, family. I certainly hope that you've enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. If you have, please do share. As always, beloved Irritated Genie, it's been a privilege, an honor, and a pleasure hearing from you. And I know that the audience has got a lot from what you've had to say. And I certainly hope that they share, so that these messages reach the kings in the Sahel region, our brothers in Haiti, that it gets translated into different languages around the world. Thank you so much. More strength, more voodoo power to you. Bye for now.
All right.
Bye now.
Big Black Pride.
Straight Black Pride all the way. Brilliant. Okay.